What's up, guys? I'm E-House from Gun Gamers.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Cory.
And today we're talking about expensive versus cheap gear. Isn't this everyone's favorite topic?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, if I recall correctly, this was one of the earlier videos that we did on the channel back in like 2015. Was our initial take on this topic.
Correct.
But I think now we've got a little more experience with it.
Yeah.
And also, we've got a wild card to throw in.
Yes.
Cheap versus expensive versus custom.
Yep. And our opinions have definitely changed as time has gone on. I mean,
yeah.
You used to know me. I used to run only Condor, and now I run some pretty crazy custom shit.
And I used to hate on everything that wasn't super expensive. Actually, I never really hated on stuff that wasn't super expensive, but I used to always think you get what you pay for, and now I've had some expensive gear that has actually kind of failed me, and now I'm a little salty, so I'm going to rant and bitch, and it's going to be great. But we're going to talk about, kind of things that are markers of quality, things that are different as you look at different gear manufacturers, ways to assess the quality of gear that you're looking at, and, kind of how your shopping can change depending on what you're looking for, and maybe the advantages of shying away from large batch production made stuff and maybe going to something more custom, a little more tailored to you and your style. So let's get right into it. What all do we have on this table to start off with? Why don't we start with the cheapest thing?
All right, so this is, I don't even know the exact nomenclature of this, but a lot of the times if you look up Blackhawk Navy SEAL chest rig on Amazon or eBay, you'll find this guy. And we're pretty sure that this is Chinese made. It's actually a great rig and was much of the inspiration. This is the great grandfather to the G-Gar made by Engage Tactical. It's just a standard chest rig with 4 2-mag pouches and then adjustable pistol mag pouches on the sides. It's a super lightweight rig, offers almost no modularity and very little adjustability, but it's a good goddamn rig for the price, but it's just kind of cheaply, maybe not cheaply made, but cheaply thought out.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of area on here we can see how it doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, the straps
strap
are
is nothing.
just single piece of nylon,
Yep.
and then it's, sewn on here. There's no, the hardware clearly is not the most most hardware.
No. Yeah, they didn't go ITW.
Yeah, I don't think
this
is standard ITW.
No.
This says something WJO Flex 25 millimeter.
Yeah.
So it's hardware that's kind of whatever.
Yeah.
If it's cheap strap, then the actual rig itself, there's nothing to it.
There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
You can see the stitching
There's
for
nothing
the
on the
pouch
back.
divisions on the back. There's no admin pocket or anything. So
Yep.
this can be very easily made, very cheaply, because there's just nothing to the design. It's a very simple, it's not super feature rich, but it does what it does well. I mean, how old is this rig?
I don't know. Probably 10 years old, if not more.
So
because this I got at a thrift store on a military base. And this is in Coyote. And the Army didn't really use Coyote much at all. Except out of guys buying stuff just for fun. I mean, it even says range only written on it. So this could be super old. I think the rig has been around probably for 15 years, but I mean, judging by the design, it could be even older than that.
Yeah, but this is an example, I think, of cheap gear not necessarily being bad. Because gear can be cheap just because it's simple to make.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Spirit of Systems Bank Robber.
Yeah, that's a great rig.
Yeah, that's a Gucci rig from a Gucci brand, but there's nothing to it, so it's like $65, $70.
Yep, that's the same price of this guy new. Is about $65. That's the most expensive I've seen it. I've seen them sold for less than that.
Yeah.
It's a great rig, especially if you want something that you can use for anything, pretty much.
And it's the price of a video game.
Yeah.
That's kind of my... when I call gear cheap, if it's the same price as a video game, that's what I consider to be cheap for gear. Because you're going to have that a lot longer.
One of the things is this is an example of good, cheap gear. What a lot of them are, though, is they're replicas of other pieces of gear
Yes.
rather than being their own. Because if you're going to buy cheap gear, I recommend buying something that its own design rather than a replica of something else. Because a lot of times they replicate it poorly, which leads to fitment issues. They cut corners in other ways that don't make it work the way it should. A lot of times the stitching density goes way down because they're trying to keep the cost as low as possible when they're trying to clone it. Versus something like this, they made it simple, but it's tough and it'll last a long time. And so if you're going to buy cheap gear, you should be buying stuff like this. Don't buy the replica cry stuff. Don't do that. That's not good because you'll end up with something that's not going to fit on you well and will wear out a lot faster.
Yeah,
This
because
chest
they
rig-
cheap out more on materials as opposed to cheaping out more on just manufacturing.
I mean, think of like remember the early clone versions of this D3, how bad they were?
Yeah, they were really bad.
Abysmal bad.
And they're way better now because they actually upped the material quality and even the stitching quality, but they also went up in price.
Correct, yeah. So if you want the complexity, you're going to just have to pay more for it, but that doesn't mean you can't get a quality rig that isn't going to work really well for a fair price. And honestly, 90% of airsofters can work with this.
For 95% of games.
And you will never have issues.
You'll never wreck this rig. It's got some seriously good double stitching in some spots.
Yeah.
On the inside of the magazine pouch, it has this more rubberized nylon up here, and which is going to prevent fraying and make inserts and taking magazines out of there way easier. And this is super thick. The Velcro is very high quality. Someone probably deployed with this chest rig. I would probably argue that because I got it out of Fort Hood, and that's a base that a lot of people were moving out of.
So, but that's something to keep in mind too, is when we're talking about the quality of gear, how do you evaluate gear quality? One way to evaluate gear quality is stitching density.
Yep.
And the amount of stitches per inch, how heavy duty the stitching on things is, whether it's double stitched. But just being double stitched doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
Correct, yeah.
Single stitching that's done well with attention to detail, that's evenly spaced, and that's put in sensible areas can still be stronger than bad double stitching.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And also, just because something is on a Gucci piece of gear doesn't mean it's the best. There's very well-known issues with some plate carriers where the way the shoulder straps are attached is just one piece of stitching onto the plate bag.
Yep.
The Cry JPC actually has issues where people can rip the straps off of the plate bags because sometimes as those get older and as those wear out, that's a known failure point. Some people will have that reinforced, especially on the fake JPCs. That's where those love to fail.
Oh, yeah.
But then you get into something like, say, this Mayflower APC, which is absolutely my favorite plate carrier. And when you open this up, you can see that the way the shoulder straps are attached is with one set of stitching here at both sets of nylon that make up the front and the back, and then you also have this step down stitched into the entire rear of the plate pocket, and this whole internal plate pocket is all, I'm not going to open it all up because there's a lot there, but it's all reinforced. It's all another layer of nylon, and there's a lot of stitching here. It's single stitching, but it's done in an X pattern with a square around it, and this is all to distribute the weight of the plate carrier and the weight of the plates whenever they're hanging by these shoulder straps. And then you have nice ITW hardware here that isn't going to break on you. This kind of stuff would be a potential failure point if it was too cheap and if it was too weak.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like having buckles on their shoulder straps for that reason.
Yeah.
But that's another thing to talk about is hardware. And ITW hardware and 1-inch buckles have kind of become like the premium standard at this point.
Yeah, they're the standard. But definitely, as you pointed out, though, it's almost more important if you're going to run a plate carrier and looking for gear, spend the extra money on a better plate carrier. Because this, you can get away with cutting corners and you won't have suspension or balance issues and it won't weigh you down. Versus here, you will be the most uncomfortable, miserable experience, and then you'll break it and then you'll be really salty about it.
Yeah, I've got 10 pounds of plates in here.
Yeah.
So, when you're actually wearing weighted plates, you really do notice the difference in quality of a plate carrier. I wore weighted plates in a couple other plate carriers. I wore them in my JPC once, And I decided then that I really didn't like the JPC because the shoulder pad, there were no shoulder pads.
Okay.
And between the shoulder pads and just the way it fit on my body, that was when I determined, okay, I'm not a huge JPC fan.
Yeah.
And people assume that a lot of gear that's issued must be the best gear.
Oh.
Do you have opinions on that?
No. God, no. No. The IOTV is pretty bad. A lot of us were looking at the Marine Corps, looking at their plate carriers and going, God, I wish we had those. Because even though they were cheaper and offered less protection, the IOTVs that I used in the military were god-awful. The cable that went through the straps would just dig in. That was used for the quick detach system. They would just dig into your shoulders. And if for some reason you ever pulled that cable, it's like doing fucking surgery to put that thing back together. And then you get to the certain units, like the unit I was in, where you had to wear a flick on top of the plate carrier. And for a plate carrier that's quick detach, in case of a medical emergency, why the hell do you have something inhibiting or prohibiting that action?
So what you're saying is that intelligence of the design is more important than necessarily the robustness of the build in some cases.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, because the IOTV is heavy duty.
Yeah,
you don't hear anyone breaking the IOTV.
No, the IOTV is actually, if it were more comfortable, it would probably be pretty good. In fact, if you get it fitting perfectly, it's not that bad, and you do get used to it. But there's better stuff out there, for sure. And the Flick chest rig that's out there with the Army was also another thing that was built really well, but poorly designed. So it's kind of the opposite. Like the IOTV is designed well, and built well for the most part. It's just like the way it's used is kind of stupid.
But that's something that I think is even more important for evaluating the quality of the gear than anything else is the design intelligent? Is there a purpose for everything? Is there a reason it's put together the way it's put together?
Yeah.
Or does it just seem like someone built it to look cool?
Yeah.
Because I'll look at like some airsoft plate carriers, and you look at the way those are put together and like these needless features they have, weird buckles in weird places, like weird stuff. And you're like, is this... It's cheap and it's filled with all these useless features. How is it so cheap for having all these features? And the answer is probably because, number one, they didn't test it at all, so they didn't spend any money in research and development.
Yeah.
And number two, it's probably cheaply made to incorporate all those features.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. But then, as you were talking about with, is it intelligent design? That is the double-edged sword of custom.
Yeah.
That is absolutely...
Because then the design of your gear is as intelligent as you are.
Yeah.
And we're pretty stupid, hence the G-Gar. But
I'm offended.
But that's the thing, you will run into some cases where maybe off-the-rack gear suits your preference perfectly. That's why I like, the Mayflower APC. Or then you might run into a situation where it's like, man, no one makes exactly what I want. And that's when you buy custom gear.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we've got two pieces here.
Why don't you go first?
All right, I'll go first because mine's pretty simple. Fair warning here. I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments saying, you stole that idea from GMR. I actually did not know the GMR Minimap did this when I bought this thing. And then someone told me, and I'm like, oh, well, I feel stupid. But I bought an Engage Tactical Mercury Bravo, which is actually larger than the GMR Minimap, so it suits my preferences better. No offense if you like the Minimap, I just like bigger
The
packs.
Minimap's a great piece of gear. In fact, pretty much all of GMR's gear is pretty good.
Yeah, but I like bigger map packs, so sorry guys. But I wanted a backpack that would go onto my plate carrier that I could access without taking off my plate carrier. I was experimenting with a few thoughts on the design of that. I was talking to Matt from Engage Tactical, and finally I decided, okay, I'll give up being able to take it off myself if someone else can take it off and put it on very easily. And they can, because I had a literal child hand me this when I was at Ground Zero and I was getting ready for the night portion, and my night vision was in here, and I'm like, man, I need to get up my night vision, and I'm like, hey, little dude, can you help me out? And he's like, what do I need to do? And I'm like, can you just undo these buckles and rip the pack off? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, just unclip those buckles like this and just rip the thing off. And that is what I wanted. So I had that custom made, and this is all, I mean, all the Velcro is stitched on here with good attention to detail. All the Velcro on here, it's high quality Velcro. It's all nice ITW Nexus buckles, so very high quality hardware. You know, Cordura nylon, genuine multicam, all that actually matches the webbing on my APC.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, so that's when you run into, okay, an intelligently designed piece of gear at the quality I want doesn't really exist for the particular purpose that I need. So I'm going to contact someone like Wild Bill Tactical, Engage Tactical, Perros Designs does some custom work. You've got Bergspitz Customs, although I don't know if he's still taking orders. I think he went to work for Eagle. But you can contact these guys and be like, hey, make me this thing to fit my particular special snowflake needs, and you'll pay for it. Some cases more or less than what other option on the market costs. This cost me $180 shipped, or $190 shipped. I don't even remember. I'll have to look at the PayPal transaction. But it's exactly what I wanted, and it serves my purpose very particularly. And that's the strength of custom gear versus other high-end options. So don't neglect the small businesses. I'm going to put the meme up. The did you design that gear yourself? It'd be a lot cooler if you did. And we just had Joe, Sober Joe. He just had Engage make him a whole plate carrier. Because Joe couldn't find a plate carrier on the market that did exactly what he wanted, so he had Engage make him one. Because Engage has basically become our team tailor.
Pretty much.
He's
also designing a specific placard for the G-Gar for machine guns, which is going to be freaking cool. I'm excited for that.
No, and then like for me, I couldn't find, again, unique special snowflake reasons. I didn't have a loadout bag that fit in my car well because my car doesn't have a lot of storage, so I'm having to make a custom loadout bag to fit in that again. It's like awesome. With custom gear, you're trying to fill a niche that the standard market can't fill for whatever reason. And if you haven't been playing a long time, stay away from custom gear. Because you're probably gonna design something that you're gonna hate down the line, and then if you decide you don't want it and you want to get rid of it, you're gonna lose a ton of money on it.
Or if you're not that experienced and you want custom gear because you think you know what you want and you're like, man, I could really use this for this purpose, collaborate with the guy who's making it.
Also a good option.
That is a really good way to do it because, I mean, I can only speak from my experience with custom makers. If you have a semblance of an idea what you want, and you're open to suggestions, and you're not going to get sticker shock when they charge you as much as any other premium option on the market, because that's what you're buying is a one-off premium piece of gear. If you are patient and open and willing to spend the money, they will absolutely collaborate with you on whatever it is you want in a manner that's more realistic. Now, if you know what you want and you go to them with what you want, don't be that guy who's like, it needs to be all this ridiculous material from people who don't even make this material. There have been cases we've heard of that. But if you go in with like a collaborative attitude, maybe what you want isn't realistic or can't be done for some reason, but you're willing to collaborate and listen. I mean, the G-Gar had plenty of back and forth with Matt.
The G-Gar was...
I left the design of this QD system up to Matt too, because he knew better than I did how to do it.
And he's very qualified to do it. And custom gear is what I've learned. Actually, I just thought of this right now. It's very much like getting a tattoo from a really good artist. If you find a really good tailor, just like you would find a really good artist if you're going to get a tattoo, you give them an idea and you leave them up to exactly how the idea is done. Tell them some specific things that you want and then leave the rest up to them, and usually you're going to fall in love with that tattoo. I mean, that's what I do every time I get a tattoo. I basically tell them the gist of what I want, and then they draw it up for me, and I'm like, yep, that's what I want. Just let an artist do their art.
Yep.
And that's basically how the G-Gar was.
Yeah, that's right. Well, for the loadout bag that's under production as of this video, he had to change the entire top loading design of what I originally sketched because of how the construction works when you're actually building the bags.
Yep.
Where they know things that you don't think about, because if you're not thinking about sewing manufacturing, because you don't do that, which is why you're asking someone to make it for you, they may come into factors of like, hey, this won't work because of this, but we can change it this way. And if you're going to go down that customer, you have to be just open to those little changes and make sure it still fits what both parties are wanting to do.
Yeah. So, wow, we dumped a lot here. But basically, I think we ended up talking about design more than...
Yes.
Yeah, more than, like, gear itself. We started talking about design.
That's what... Custom is all about design.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, because there's the low end, which fits the vast majority of players. Then there's high end when you start getting into a bit of a specialized role. And then when you want exactly something, that's when you go to custom. And you should really start at the bottom and work your way up as you do things. Because that's what I did. And I have no regrets about any of the gear I bought over time. Because if I jumped straight into high end or even into custom, I would have probably made a lot of mistakes and bought a lot of things I wasn't happy with.
What I would recommend if you're trying to buy quality gear at a low price, I mean, shop around for Milsurp stuff or... God damn it, Matt. Anyway, so if you're trying to start on that progression, pick simple design stuff first. Because the simpler of a design you start with, the more versatile it will be.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to figure out from that simple design, from that relatively basic kind of thing, okay, from here I want to go in this direction and try this thing next. That's when you get into like more specialized stuff with the high end that maybe has some more features that can be used in more different ways. Like the D3 can be integrated to plate carriers, have packs added to it, or the APC can integrate chest rigs and have all kinds of different roles. So that's when you get more feature rich. I would not recommend buying cheap feature rich stuff.
No.
Because cheap feature rich stuff tends to not be that high quality so that they can squeeze all the features into it. Then if you want very specialized, very niche stuff, that's where custom gear comes in.
Yep. Correct. And, and it can be specialized but modular like the G-Gar is and stuff like that, where my custom gear is all super, super niche and fits a very narrow exposure. That fits a wider exposure because it's designed to be changed out, which could be a direction that you want to go to as well.
Yep.
When you have like core components you want, but you want to be able to change others, that's, again, where custom gear can make a lot of sense.
This rig is also, it's also made to be adaptable, but it's also made to basically do the basic jobs for any airsoft role. The middle placard changes out with caliber and weapon type, but everything else stays the same. It has a cargo pouch, has a radio pouch, has a spot for a tourniquet or a pistol mag pouch, and it will accept a dangler. I don't know what more you need than that.
Well, that's actually an interesting point I want to bring up. If you get custom gear versus real, like, not real steel, but like versus high-end or cheap gear, custom gear to you is made for your airsoft game.
Yep. Correct.
It's not made for a military application.
That's right.
Because contrary to what some people might seem to think, we are not soldiers, and we do not have the same needs as a large standing army ordering thousands of these things for a ton of people. We are airsofters who all have our own play styles, all experience the game a little differently, all play in all kinds of different places. So custom gear and even airsoft specific gear, like hell, the Speed QB gear that's coming out, GMR gear, Engage Tactical, airsoft specific gear is getting better. And having your gear custom made by another airsofter is a very viable way to go, and is increasingly viable. This is something we didn't see when we were starting out in the hobby.
No, absolutely not.
There was no one there were no airsofters making airsoft specific gear, really.
No, that did not exist. I think the only customs I saw were like
Kydex makers.
And I saw altered versions of like high-end gear, but there was never true customs. I would say, because we've been playing for over a decade now.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I never saw anyone who said, yeah, I ordered and I had someone make this chest rig. There was people who said, well, I had this modified. But
Yeah.
I never saw like, yeah, this was my design. I did this. You never saw that, ever.
And that's a cool direction that gear is evolving in that I think even has taken off more since Gun Gamers started. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm into it. I'm excited. But I think that'll do it for this video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I've been E-House.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Cory.
We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Thank you for watching this video from Gun Gamers. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. Check the description below if you'd like to buy a t-shirt or a patch, and use the coupon code JUDY10 for 10% off of your next order at Amped Airsoft. Thank you again for watching, and praise Judy.